I think that Lithuania is a country always in the process of changing, in the process of growing, in the process of being more and more ambitious and innovative.
Hello and welcome. This is Ruta Naujokaite and you're listening to Lithuanian Dream Podcast, a podcast exploring ideas about contemporary Lithuania. Thank you for joining Lithuanian Dream Podcast. Today we are celebrating 1 year anniversary of this podcast. It means 34 episodes with interviews from the people who shaped contemporary Lithuania, starting from authors like Rūta Šepetis to policymakers like Lithuanian Foreign Minister Linas Linkevičius, and some scientists and some cultural people, and altogether all of them shared their own ideas about Lithuania. So now, after 1 year, we have some news to share. We have Gabriele Valodskaite joining our team. She will be responsible for our sound quality. And this episode was actually edited by her. So thank you so much, Gabriele, for joining us. And Sean Donovan, our chief editor, will be presenting news from now on. So you will be hearing some news before the interviews. We will have the news every 2 weeks, so don't worry. We will first try and ask for your opinion. And then, if it works, we will have it weekly. And now we are on the radio as well. So maybe you are even listening to us on the radio. Lithuanian Dream Podcast now will be broadcasted every Friday, 9 p.m. on a radio station in Santa Cruz. And if you're listening on the radio or even for the podcast, don't forget to go to our webpage, lithuaniandreampodcast.com, where you can find all episodes recorded so far. And don't forget to connect on the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. We are looking forward to your feedback. And now I would like to invite Sean to present the news. And then let's carry on with the interview. This week, I will interview the head of work in Lithuania.
Hello, and welcome back to the Lithuanian Dream Podcast. My name's Sean Donovan, and every 2 weeks I'll be joining the podcast to look over the news and numbers in Lithuanian business. It's October 7th, 2020. Let's get started. On Tuesday, September 29th, the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, visited Vilnius to address the ongoing unrest in Belarus. While there, the French leader visited leader-in-exile Svetlana Tikhonovskaya while promising to act on the situation, stating, quote, "Europe is taking action, making pressure, and we will approve EU sanctions in the coming days or weeks, and will thus make an impact on that regime, which is coming to an end." End quote. According to LRT, Macron also pledged to help kickstart an Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe mediating mission in the country. While in the capital, Macron also visited the oldest university in Lithuania, Vilnius University, where he spoke with students and received an honorary degree. On September 25th, 2020, Fairtrado was declared the Startup of the Year in the Startup Fair Pitch Battle. Fairtrado is a B2B fertilizer trading platform that directly connects buyers and suppliers. Altogether, 31 startups competed to win the Best Startup title. The event was supported by the members of the Lithuanian Business Angel Network, a co-investment fund, 70 Ventures, a revenue-focused accelerator for B2B startups, and Trinity, a pan-Baltic business law firm. And now for a closer look at COVID-19 and its continued effect on the Lithuanian business climate. According to economist Tadas Povilauskas, who provides macroeconomic insights for both SEB and several banking sector clients, in the second quarter, the Lithuanian economy fell the least in all of Europe. In the first quarter, Lithuania's GDP fell by 5.1% in comparison to 2019, while in the second quarter of 2020, GDP saw only a 3.7% decline compared to the previous year. Cross-border travel within the Baltic states has been severely limited in September. The Lithuanian government had begun limited preparations for containment of the coronavirus as early as December and January, and imposed full travel restrictions in mid-March. At the same time, however, borders were kept open to tourists and travelers from other Baltic countries, forming the so-called Baltic bubble together with Latvia and Estonia. Due to recent increases in cases, however, the Baltic bubble is now closed, and those countries are imposing stricter measures to fight coronavirus. More on updates for that in our coming episode in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Sean, for the news. And today I would like to carry on with our interview with the head of work in Lithuania, Eglė Adašiūnaitė. She will tell us what Lithuania can bring to the person who is thinking about moving to this country. We will speak about the advantages of living in Lithuania, about the language requirements, the salary expectations, and what this country can bring to the young and old. So, Eglė, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Ruta. It's nice to finally have the chance to talk to you.
I'm so happy that you agreed to tell us more about work in Lithuania. Could you tell us what this agency is all about? When did it start?
Yes, of course. It's my pleasure. So Work in Lithuania is a platform for the individuals, highly qualified individuals, to meet local companies, the companies that have presence in Lithuania and are willing and wanting to hire from abroad. So as a program, we are aimed at helping Lithuania to remain competitive on a global scale by ensuring the constant inflow of talented people into the country.
And what brought you to this agency?
I always wanted to do a meaningful job, a job that I'm believing in. And I believe in Lithuania. I have myself experienced the life and the lifestyle Lithuania has to offer. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm not the only one who knows it. So Work in Lithuania as a program and as a team is the place for me to be.
And how big is your team and what exactly do you do on a daily basis?
My team is rather small. Overall, we are 7 people doing our best to attract Lithuanians living abroad and foreigners interested in moving their careers to Lithuania, actually to find job opportunities here. So half of my team tries to make sure that those job opportunities are known for people living abroad, and the remaining half does its best to improve the talent ecosystem currently present in Lithuania. So we work together with quite a number of institutional and non-governmental partners to improve everything from the soft landing procedures to integration programs or simplifying the migration requirements, just to make sure that coming to Lithuania is as easy as it gets.
So where do people come from? Are there any specific countries people come to work in Lithuania?
Yes, of course. And it depends whether you speak about Lithuanians or foreigners. So when it comes to Lithuanians, they return from Ireland, from Dublin, from Denmark, and from USA. If we speak about foreigners, most of them come from the neighboring countries, Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, even Latvia or Poland. So those are the countries that choose Lithuania for both work and life reasons.
And at which part of their lives do they choose to come? Is it students? Is it families? Or is it somebody who goes on pension and then they're like, I would love to live in Lithuania?
Oh, it's also very dependable on the nationality of the one coming to Lithuania. From what we gather, Lithuanians choose to come to Lithuania just after graduating from foreign universities or at that point of their life when they decide to have a family, because Lithuania has quite great conditions to start your family and raise kids here. When it comes to foreigners, it depends, but I think that the main reason is the possibility to acquire international career here with less time and hassle. So those would be also young individuals that are not yet committed or not yet has set their roots in another country. So they perceive Lithuania as a great area or great space for them to just kickstart their career in an international company while contributing to global changing, to the creation of products that are recognized globally and to the names of major players.
So you mentioned the young families. What can Lithuania give and how can they benefit from moving to Lithuania?
Well, Lithuania is rather family-friendly, and it provides quite generous social policies to young families in a form of long maternity leaves and a wide network of the state-compensated daycare centers. In fact, Lithuania is recognized by OECD as fourth in the whole union by the duration of the maternal leave provided to the young families. And this whole policy becomes more and more inclusive towards fathers as well. So I think that's the main point why many of the expats with young families eventually choose to move back to Lithuania and raise their kids here, because it allows them to have great work and life balance, and at the same time provide all the care for the kids.
And what about kids who do not speak Lithuanian or, can speak, but just a little bit? Is there any support system for that?
Yes, of course, actually, because Lithuania has quite an experience of emigration. This is why many of the schools recognize the need to provide support for families coming back. So there are both public and private schools tailored at international families.
And what about young people, students, or people who just finished studies, who would like to move to Lithuania? What can they find in there?
It's a good question, and I'm thinking that every student listening to this podcast would expect that I would say that Lithuania has a vibrant nightlife, that it has affordable lifestyle and so on. But I think that Lithuania is meant for the ambitious and for the ambitious students as well, because here they can find less competition and they can truly achieve more faster. So I think that here they can start by looking for junior positions in comparison to the remaining European countries where you'll find it difficult to find an internship in an international company. Here, you just go straight out from the university and you can enter the labor market in the very beginning of your career.
Are there many study programs in English, or can actually they go around the city without a friend and manage by just using English language?
Yes, English is really widespread in Lithuania, and especially in the major cities that also are home for the biggest universities that they have. There are also plenty of study programs in English. I think that facts speak for themselves. We have 70,000 foreigners currently living in Lithuania. For the size of such a company, it's quite a significant number. So it's very likely that you will run into someone that is in the same boat as you.
So 70,000 foreigners in Lithuania. Where do they work? Which companies attract the biggest amount of them?
I think that the ones that provide the most competitive job offers. So as in many countries, information technologies is the sector to work in. Then it would be financial sector with both well-known names such as Danske Bank or Western Union, as well as the fintech cluster that is currently composed of more than 200 companies employing more than 5,000 employees. So the ones interested in contributing to this cluster are also coming to Lithuania.
Are there any success stories in Lithuanian society where people manage not just to get by, but actually make a big career or to become famous in Lithuania?
Well, Lithuanians love foreigners because they are different. They have a lot to offer. They have a different perspective towards life and Lithuania in general. And us as a nation being very self-critical, we really appreciate and feel great gratitude towards internationals that decided to come here and enjoy Lithuania as a country, and the ones that are courageous enough to speak out loud about it. So it's not that difficult to get into the media than being an international, living and enjoying Lithuanian lifestyle. We have success stories as Jurgis Didžiulis and many others who have contributed greatly to the tolerance and acceptance of internationals in Lithuania. When it comes to career, I just don't want to cherry pick and select one of the working Lithuanian heroes. They are all our heroes and they have achieved great results. So I'm just grateful to them that they have decided to come here and contribute to the Lithuanian economy by their choice and by their talent, by their skills.
Let's talk about salaries. What kind of salary people could expect by working in different sectors in Lithuania?
Probably it's important to note that Lithuania and its economy has grown substantially due to the incoming foreign direct investment that we have managed to attract over the last decade. So salaries have grown as well. Currently in the market, the highest salaries are offered by the IT sector. Of course, it comes not as a surprise. So as an example would be, let's say, a mid-level developer, Java developer. Such a guy or a girl would get a 1,500 euros a month. And it's only the beginning. Then with the experience, the salary would go higher. Similar salaries could be seen in sectors or in the occupations such as experienced accountants, data analysts, data scientists, know your customer specialists, compliance officers, the ones most in demand in the fintech.
And what is the living wage in Lithuania? Is it enough to survive? Because 1,500 euros in New York would be nothing.
Yeah, exactly. This is the right question that you are asking. So, yeah, maybe compared to other countries, 1,500 euros seems not that much. But Lithuania is still very affordable countries because the salaries grew up faster than the remaining countries. So 1,500 is fully enough to rent a flat in the city center, even in the capital, and go around about your remaining life, including hobbies, gym, food, and all other expenses.
So what are the biggest discoveries people find in Lithuania? As you said, the cliches, taking away the cliches.
You would be surprised that I've heard the Italians, the Greeks admire Lithuanian nature. For me, it was the biggest discovery because I always thought that we cannot compete with these countries in terms of our nature. But for them, this whole greenness, forest-covered country is something special. And they name our lake district as something that they have never seen before. So, it changed my attitude towards the touristic attractions in the country. Plus, being myself a Lithuanian, I always thought that we are rather cold people, being rather northern. What I've heard from the internationals staying here, they said that you have to give us a few weeks. And after that, we are very welcoming and warm people. So it just crushed my stereotypes that I had about Lithuanians.
For sure. I'm dating American, and he's really amazed by how we do not really show any emotion sometimes. But Germans are very similar, so we share that. So what about the company culture? It sort of relates to that. So how do people feel in Lithuanian companies?
They said that Lithuania has great working culture because it shares the same values as the Scandinavian working culture, meaning that the respect towards an individual is very high and present. Plus, we are very disciplined. We have great respect to time and commitments. And we are very hardworking. So we appreciate that things get done in Lithuania and promises are kept.
And you mentioned that if the person comes, there is a space for them to grow and for the ambition. How do you think it can go into practice? Like growing in the ranks of a company or creating your own projects? What kind of things people can do?
It can go both ways. As I said, Lithuania is still a growing market and not yet discovered by the whole world. This is why here you have less competition. And if you want to climb the ladder, we see that it gets quite faster compared to the remaining Europe. Because here, what matters most are results, not your age. So if you are doing something well enough, you'll get recognized eventually. When it comes to creating products or starting your own company, there are also plenty of opportunities because we have like national support for startups and young businesses. So the variety of career opportunities is amazing. And some of the people lucky enough to find it come here and are quite successful.
And what about choosing Lithuania as a hub for digital nomad? This is a very popular phrase nowadays. Have you ever met a digital nomad in Lithuania?
Yes, of course. All the co-working spaces are full of them because here you can enjoy unparalleled internet access and speed. So this is what matters for the most digital nomads. You can work here in public spaces and the internet is free and fast and extremely accessible. Also, it's cheap to acquire your internet at home. So I think that our ICT infrastructure is what makes us most appealing to the digital nomads. Plus, the affordable living and the lifestyle you can have here. So I would highly advise for everyone wanting to try out some new destinations to come and discover Vilnius or Kaunas or even our port city Klaipėda for that purpose.
For sure. And let's step back a bit. So you're talking about the fact that nobody knows about Lithuania, actually. And it's true. Every time I meet a foreigner, there's a 50% chance that he has no clue where is Lithuania. For them, in their heads, it's a forest in the map. So how do you promote this forest to foreigners and encourage them to come?
By admitting that we are really covered with forest, but those are easily accessible. And this is what makes Lithuania so great to live and work, because it's like 30 minutes away and you can just finish off your work and go to the Lake District or to the forest in 30 minutes. So something that is a stereotype sometimes might turn out as a plus. And I think that what we have here is exactly so. And I think that it's not only our opinion, it's what I have already heard from all the heroes of Work in Lithuania program, plus the same OECD organization that I have mentioned before. It ranked us 6th by work and life balance. So, it's not a cliche, it's a fact.
It's very interesting for sure. I will add the link in our podcast notes so people can check that too. And do you use any digital marketing or other tools to promote Lithuania? And what messaging actually works?
Well, it depends on the occupation and on the field, because we mainly work with highly skilled individuals and with job openings suited for them. So those are mainly in the fields of IT, engineering, business services, and financial sector. So every sector and people working in there have different needs. So we try to segment our messages and promote those selling points that are most appealing to a specific group of people. So when it comes to digital marketing, we make sure that our job openings and the message about Lithuania reaches the developers, currently browsing Stack Overflow or GitHub and other sites usually visited by those specialists. When it comes to Lithuanians, maybe working in the financial sector in London, we will try to approach them with messages more or less tailored at the job openings currently present in Lithuanian fintech. So this is how we go about it. But we take part in various career events or invite people to online webinars, conferences, consultations. just to present that we are here on the map and we have a lot to offer.
Actually, I spoke with 2 foreigners who moved to Lithuania, and I will interview one of them on our podcast. And he was really amazed by your website because he was reading it all the time, and it became his Bible of moving to Lithuania. So for sure, it's great. What can people find there? Tell us.
They can find plenty of things there. So first of all, jobs, because the main function for our website is a job portal. There you can find all the listing of companies willing to hire from abroad and the openings that they currently have. So right now we have around 300 openings suited for internationals. You can also find there the information related to migration and relocation process, to make it easier for both the talents that are considering moving to Lithuania and to the companies hiring them. Because sometimes there are questions that you have to think of to make sure that the landing and integration of the foreigner is as soft as possible. An individual visiting our website can also subscribe to our newsletter or sign in or register to our database, and then we would approach him with opportunities with job openings that suits his or her needs the most. So just as I told you, it's a hub where this whole matching process happens, whether it's a company or a talented individual considering moving to Lithuania. This is what we try to achieve in this portal, just to make sure that they meet each other.
It sounds really good for sure. And having it in a systematic way for people to find, it's very useful because information in English is very, very important, especially when you're moving to a different country.
It's important to see it from the incomer's view, because being in Lithuania, living here for all your life, you don't think of the challenges that those people can face. And this is what we do. We try to think about those challenges ahead and make sure that they are provided with all the required information, and that they are all ready and that they would be very positive as it can go.
Yes, it's very fragile state as well, because people are in different environment without, their mom or dad, or they need to pretend to be adults still and knowing everything. So they can just go to your website, find out.
Aren't we all like that in certain contexts, right?
Exactly. What do you think are the main challenges then? You said that, you sort of map the journey of people. So what are maybe 2-3 things that are quite challenging that you try to solve within your website?
We try to give an instruction, like a step-by-step guide, what you have to think of, and especially what you have to think of before you move to Lithuania. So maybe there are some documents that you'll have to get ready or translated. Or maybe you should think of how you are shipping your things into the country in a wise and cost-effective way, how to rent a flat or how to register in certain venue that you decided to live in. All those things are important, but knowing about those things in advance helps you out immensely. Yet another thing about settling in the country is the challenge of integrating, of creating your own bubble, your own circle of friends. So for that purpose, we want to connect people in different groups, to advise them on how many communities or mentorship programs are there. We work closely with our partners from municipalities and city agencies that organize various welcome to Vilnius or welcome to Kaunas workshops. And the goal of those workshops is to provide people with all the information required to get around in the city, starting with the basics on how the bus system works and going that deep, like having a workshop on how to fill a certain migration procedure. These workshops also help out people to create their own network, both to meet Lithuanians and the ones that have made the same choice as they did, namely to move to Lithuania.
And how do you gather that information? Like, what do people need? Do people send you sort of feedback and say, hey guys, maybe you could provide this information, and then you create the content? Or do you have like a focus groups, or what's the system?
We ask them actually, Everyone who signs into our website, they have their own account. So when we find out that they are considering moving to Lithuania or that they have got a job offer from a Lithuanian company, just we ask them what the experience was and what can we do to improve it. And then just consider ourselves responsible to make their opinions heard and to solve those challenges eventually. So maybe this is the place to express my gratitude towards all the partners that we have, from the municipality, from the ministries, from the migration department. They do their best to change and to improve things that we have pointed out to be a bit flawed.
Okay, so agencies actually speak with each other. This is the thing in Lithuania.
This is the thing that we are trying to do right now. And I think that this whole COVID-19 situation, the things happening in Belarus, have raised great awareness about the issue and talent attraction as a topic and as a public policy field. So I've noticed that many agencies, institutions, and ministries understand it as an important field and does it best, to change and to improve the policies and the services they provide.
And why COVID, I guess, stopped people from coming, and the things in Belarus, actually, we expect refugees coming, or is it the reasons, or are there more reasons for this shift?
That's a good question. I think it all boils down to the humanity, because you understand that human life is more than work. It also relates to lifestyle, quality of life, safety, family, children, and hearing out those stories, whether those are these success stories for the incomers that decided to do so on their own behalf or the ones that were forced because they had no choice. It just raises awareness about the problem and helps to mobilize institutions related to that field. I guess we just feel for the neighbors.
Okay, very nice to hear that for sure. And hopefully in few months or in a year, we will have a better situation. But it's good to hear that actually the system is being changed so it can accommodate better the people who are coming. And what about the companies? So how do you work with companies? Do they come to you or do you go to the companies and ask if they need help?
It depends. I think that most of the companies have approached us themselves because we realized that some of the occupations are about to become scarce, or people capable of working in certain roles are about to become scarce. So those have started to adapt and prepare themselves for hiring from abroad. And for that, they had to make quite a few changes in their internal process, especially in the language commonly used in the company. And after that, they decide to join our initiative and use our services. So from our side, what we try to do best to provide them with constant traffic of talented people, with a pool of candidates to select from. And once a candidate applies, our work is done. From that point, the company itself becomes responsible for the screening, interviewing, and eventually recruiting that person. We decided, as a program, to do so, just not to duplicate the services provided in the private sector. We still see that some of the companies lack resources to do sourcing from abroad, whether those are human or financial resources. And this is how we, as a governmental initiative, help them out, because we perceive that constant supply of talent and people and of skills are crucial for the continuous growth of those companies and of the Lithuanian economy as a whole.
And how many companies, for instance, have used your services? You don't need to say exact number, but is it hundreds or is it thousands already?
Since we try to build a community of businesses that are hiring from abroad, so I have a very concrete number. We have 170 companies currently in the network and actively using both our services and our website. And the diversity of those companies is vast. It is companies like IBM, Nasdaq, Unity, Uber, such well-known corporations as Danske Bank or Western Union, and also all the community of fintechs or such recognized startups as Vinted or Revolut. So it's quite a pool to choose from.
For sure. And do they actually have a requirement, just English language, or is it sometimes English and basic Lithuanian? Or do you try to advise them that the people who are coming most possibly won't speak Lithuanian?
To be honest, we are very strict in this regard. We make sure that all the job openings that we publish on our website are suited for internationals, so that Lithuanian language is not a requirement to get that job. If we notice that's not the case, we try to friendly change the opinion of our company or to make sure that they remove this job posting, because we want to keep our promise. We are the ones publishing top-notch job opportunities in our top-notch companies completely suited for internationals and non-Lithuanian speakers.
And do companies convince each other, like other companies, and bring to the program saying that it worked for me, it will work for you?
I think that it's still some work needed to be done in that regard, because they have very successful companies that are quite experienced in hiring internationals, and this choice worked them out fine, but about their successes are not spreading that fast. So it's something that we have to put our hands on as a Work Lithuanian program as well.
Well, thank you for the honesty. This is one of the things in Lithuania as well. We talk about it in Germany, that Lithuanians do not talk about themselves a lot because they often say, my work speaks for me. But in the current economy, we need to have marketing and we need to talk about ourselves because there's so much information.
Yes, Lithuanians and the Lithuanian working culture is rather humble. We achieve many things. We are hardworking, but we do not speak about it. Sometimes, it goes the other way around, and that would be disappointing. But for Lithuanians, it's not like that. We should speak up about our successes and our achievements.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because in Scandinavia, they have the same rule. It's the sameness, 10 unwritten rules of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And it's basically that nobody brags because then you feel better than others, but you are the same on the same level and everyone is equal. But at the same time, they manage to sort of talk about their work and maybe separate it from the personality. And at home, we, I guess, have like a bit of a mixture of Scandinavian, maybe more East. And then there's maybe a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think that eventually it will change. We just have to admit that we something to brag about.
For sure. And especially the good change, diversity coming to Lithuania, which is amazing. Do you see a trend? Are there more people coming every year or is it constant influx?
Yes, actually, and I think that 2019 was the first year when Lithuania has witnessed the positive net migration. So more and more people are choosing Lithuania for career reasons, or some increase in return migration is also noticed. So we are on a very positive trend.
Even with COVID, we are still on a positive trend.
Yes, because many Lithuanians, I don't know because of what reasons, have chosen to stay out the COVID-19 situation at home. Maybe because some of them lost jobs, maybe because some of them were allowed to work from home, and working from Lithuania was an option and a very comfortable one. So yes, we have quite many Lithuanians coming back or residing in Lithuania for over this whole period. Plus, I think that one thing that contributed to Lithuanians returning back home during the COVID-19 period was our public health system and its capacity to cope with the challenges caused by this lockdown. Lithuania and the measures taken here have helped to solve all the challenges quite easily and quite fast. And it eventually resulted in opening up to foreigners quicker than in other European countries. and even forming this well-known Baltic travel bubble that allowed to travel around the Baltic states at least. So it was really impressive.
Yes, and now we have a Baltic bridge with Estonia, which is beautiful because Latvia decided to close down.
Yes, so the bubble was present for the summer. Right now we have the bridge, but I think that in no time we will come back to the terms of the bubble.
For sure, hopefully, yeah. I think we learned a lot from the first lockdown, and now even the countries are thinking differently and learning from the experience.
I admire the society and its feeling of responsibility to comply with all the requirements, to stay at home and make sure that you and your loved ones are safe. So it helped out immensely for the government and for the public system to cope.
Yes, and even population. We have quite not dense society. I think it's 4 times less people scrambled in the same space than in Germany. So, even with the social distancing, we're already advancing there. So
yes, plus plenty of forests to go for a walk and, to have your space and time without meeting anyone else.
For sure. And what about the jobs in different cities, not just in Vilnius, Kaunas, and Klaipėda? Are there any jobs for foreigners or Lithuanians coming back from abroad?
I think that smaller cities in Lithuania would have more opportunities for the Lithuanian returnees to offer. When it comes to the internationals, I would suggest to go to the major cities, to Vilnius, to Kaunas, and to Klaipėda, just to make sure that your life is convenient and that English is widespread. I think that for returnees, smaller cities like Šiauliai or Panevėžys could offer great small business opportunities. I mean, provide support for starting off your local business and getting support from the municipality or from the government, from what I've seen so far. So, I don't want to oversell for internationals that little cities are that convenient and that welcoming than the major ones.
Yes, and what about the image of Lithuania changing through the years? I took interview from Gint Bokus, who brought Western Union to Lithuania, and he told us about the image he saw in 2000s when he came to Vilnius, this grim image of, old buildings and like roads and no people or people are not smiling. And then when we compared that image with the image now, 20 years after, it's like completely different. So how would you describe Lithuania to a person who haven't been there or, haven't been for a visit for 20 or 10, 15 years or have been for like 3 days for a holiday, so didn't really have time to look around?
So I would probably say that they would be surprised how much Lithuania has changed in terms of landscape, in terms of people, and in terms of ambition. I can see how the landscape of the capital changes. And I visit Klaipėda or Kaunas several times a year, and every time I notice something different. Yet another building to rise or a square to change. So yes, I think that Lithuania is a country always in the process of changing, in the process of growing, in the process of being more and more ambitious and innovative. So those should be the words that should come into your mind when you think about Lithuania. That is very up for everything, up for the newest technologies, up for the improvement and development, up for innovation.
And what about the inner shift or inner change, like a society? I heard you are making a very nice project related to gratitude or spotting the things around you. Could you tell us more about it?
Yes, probably it contributes to the answer why I love my work that much, because it has meaning and is grounded in emotional base. So right now my team is having this project called 101 Reason Why Lithuania is So Special, or why it's worth coming back to Lithuania. So we went out to the streets of our cities and asked random people why do they consider Lithuania being a great country, and would be surprised the variety of answers, starting with the richness of language, ending up with possibilities to be whatever or whoever you want. So it's impressive how warm and how appreciative people are towards Lithuania. So maybe this is what has changed over the last decades, that we really are learning to love what we have and appreciate it and to express gratitude for that.
It's very beautiful and good to hear that it's not just, thriving modernism, but actually it's a sustainable growth, which is very, very important.
I would actually invite you to join the initiative and share your own insights on why Lithuania is so great and why you decided to do so much for it.
Thank you so much. For sure. I will join. And I think it's a beautiful initiative. And first of all, I will need to watch all 100 so I don't repeat myself. But let's do this.
No worries. I'll make sure that you're not repeating anyone else's ideas.
Thank you so much. And as a last question, I would like to ask you the question I ask everyone who comes on a podcast. What is your dream for Lithuania for the upcoming decades?
Yes, it's quite an important and rather difficult question, but I think that I'll remain with my most deepest conviction that I think that for Lithuania it would be nice to reject this idea that to be Lithuanian you need to come from Lithuania. I think that Lithuania is a perspective towards life. It's an ambition to do more, to achieve more, and to eventually get recognized for that. So it doesn't matter where you're coming from or where you're currently residing at. I think that the world is yet to find out about us.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Eglė, and sharing your vision. I believe this episode will be very, very important to many of our listeners because there are many people thinking about this change.
I hope so too.
And for listeners, thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the business news with Sean Donovan and the interview with the head of work in Lithuania. I will make sure you will have all the links in the show notes. As well, you can download the business news from our website, LithuanianDreamPodcast.com. Thank you for everyone who contributed to making this podcast, including our designer, Milda Sukyte, our sound editor, Gabriele Valodskaite, our editor-in-chief, and now business news presenter, Sean Donovan, and everyone who wrote the feedback on our social media. I was posting quite a lot last week, and thank you for all the topics that you suggested me to dive into. And don't forget to tune in next week when we will be having yet another interview. And it was Ruta Naujokaite, and it was Lithuanian Dream Podcast.